Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Pedalshift Project. The Pedalshift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments around the bike touring lifestyle. From tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride, let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are available at pedalshift.net/299, and you can email the show at pedalshift@pedalshift.net or text me at 202-930-1109 and check Pedalshift out on all the socials as well. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 299th edition of the Pedalshift Project. My name's Tim Mooney. Thanks so much for joining. It is Empire State Trail Tour Journal time once again. This is, on the 299th edition of the show, Day 1, Part 2. After the first part of riding on Day 1 gets me from the Buffalo Airport to the Empire State Trail, it's a day of riding through old canal port towns before ending my day in beautiful Brockport, New York. It's a trip across the great state of New York. Day 1 continues right here. Taking a bit of a lunch break here in Lockport, New York. The sound you're hearing is a bit of a soundscape of locks 34 and 35, major lock here. A bit of a valley or a cut in this part of the state. We may be going through part of the geography. There's the Tug Hill Plateau is further to the east of here, but this part of the state is largely one big plateau, except to get up to it, it's up at a particular level above sea level. And so when the canal cuts through it, you got a lot of locks to deal with to change the elevation. And it works pretty well. It worked differently back in the day, but it still is a functioning canal, the Erie Canal these days, as I've mentioned before. First time I've been in Lockport in a long time. But it's always kind of fun to be here by the locks. Not a lot of food options right here at the lock. I'm surprised. I thought there would be more. But I found a bagel place, and that's working just fine for me. You always know you're in Western New York when things are named after the weather. Lake Effect Artisan Ice Cream, sadly not open at the moment. I should check though. What time is it open? 3. That's not going to work for me. Too long. I'll have to get ice cream in Brockport, I'm thinking. So I'm about a third of the way done in the day. The heels are letting me know about it, but that's fine. I'll stretch out, take a good extended break here, and then get rolling. Aha! Well, now it's like super noisy, of course, because I'm right near the spillway. But the geographic thing that I was describing is the Niagara Escarpment. An escarpment is what I was describing, a big flat space that is elevated above other areas. Think of it as a gigantic mesa, except it's like a regional mesa. That's what the Niagara Escarpment is. And to cut through it, you gotta rock the locks. All right, I'm eating bagels. All right, from Upson Park, just outside of Lockport. That was a really fascinating break, just with all the history that I read from the signs there. Interesting new surface. We are, for the first time, off of pavement on the classic towpath crushed limestone, which I expect to be the bulk of the riding for the remainder of the day, particularly once we get into the gaps in between the smaller towns that we're about to go through. Lockport is the county seat for Niagara County, and so it's probably the biggest town I'll go through outside of Buffalo today, although I'm not sure how big Brockport has become. Well, I said I was going to be on non-pavement, but it looks like it's going to be a mix of it because I'm now on what looks like a service road here, going by looks to be a lift bridge, one of the many lift bridges, which I talked about, I believe, was it 2015 I did it? I'll say 2015 until I look it up and make double sure. But yeah, definitely a lift bridge. It's very low to the water level. And of course, I just saw a boat go through, and that was the excitement that I was trying to tell you before I had to pass by some folks. This part of the canal cuts through the Niagara Escarpment, as I was saying earlier. What does that mean? You got to climb 65 feet from about where I'm at right now to get through the city of Lockport. And that takes some doing with 1800s technology or 2022 technology. There's a lot of locks you have to go through. And I got to see one of the larger tourist boats do that, which was actually kind of fun. Having not seen that here, this is the stretch of the canal that you go the longest without a lock between here and roughly Rochester. And so but you go through like 5 of them just to get through Lockport because it's such a climb. You may be able to hear that we're back on the crushed limestone again. I expect it to be a little off and on here, perhaps. Hello, geese. That is the first time a goose has not hissed at me. Canadian geese always hiss at me when I go by them. And so I usually expect it, but I got no hissing. Maybe because there were no goslings. Let's see, what can I tell you about what I learned? Bagels in Western New York, this I did not learn, I knew this, are not as good as Bagels where I will be ending my tour. But they are wonderful calorie hits, I will say that. And the bagel place also had a sink where I could fill up on water. It is much more sun exposure than I was anticipating today. I thought we were going to be more cloudy than sunny today. Not the case. So I am trying to guzzle down more water, and I'm carrying more now. Did I mention this? I can't even remember what I haven't mentioned yet. I did bring my 5-liter water bag, but I am having trouble zipping it shut. So I have to deal with that, so it doesn't really close very well. So I'm only carrying about 3 liters and sort of hanging it off the bungee on my back, dry bag. That seems to be something that'll work, and so that means I can carry 3 liters in addition to the 2 water bottles I have. So that'll be fine. But yeah, trying to get more water into me. What did I learn? Well, let's see. The height, 65 feet, that you've got to climb. The stretch of flat water on the canal here, by the way, which is just a mere few feet away from me right now. So this should be a pretty flat ride, which is good and bad. Good in the sense that it's not going to be any hills. Bad in the sense that I'll be pedaling every single inch for the next 40 miles. You may or may not have, in your history classes, whether you are here in the States or elsewhere, have learned about the Marquis de Lafayette, made very famous in Hamilton as one of the main characters. But he played a really pivotal part in France and their support of the American Revolution. Okay, so we got that. Lafayette, cool dude, right? So he goes back to France. There's the French Revolution. There's all sorts of stuff and whatever. 1826 rolls around. A dude who was a young man during the American Revolution is kind of an elder statesman in 1826 and comes to the United States and is basically a gigantic rock star. That's the musical I'd like to see. If we're going to do a sequel to Hamilton, I'd like the rock star Lafayette tour in 1826. So he comes and does a big tour, sold out tour of all the cool places. And back then, Western New York was like a humming economic engine. So he comes out this direction, and apparently amongst the many places he visited, he had a very busy schedule. And there are books written about it. He wrote some, famous ones in fact. And apparently he took a gander here at those locks in Lockport and marveled at the technology. So that I learned. Today I learned. TIL. What else? Foot update. So I'm feeling it. As you would expect, And when you cycle and you end up, your calves will be activated and you'll be doing a lot of that work. As that stiffens, that makes the heel hurt. So I made sure to do some good stretching, and that ameliorated it a bit, but I'm expecting things to need ice later. One thing I've noticed is the abundant opportunities for camping along here that maybe aren't allowed, but are doable. And in fact, at this very moment, as I say that, I'm rolling by somebody's tent right here, kind of tucked away. I mean, it's not hidden by any stretch, but it's certainly not in anybody's yard. This is definitely canal property, so this would be something where I would say it would be not illegal, but probably contrary to some of the signage that you would see here. So maybe it is illegal. But in any event, I'm not sure you would get hassled so much, and you're certainly not on private property in that instance. So that would be certainly a possibility in this area. There are camping opportunities where you are allowed, permission granted at many of the locks. There's a public marina here. I wouldn't be surprised if it was allowed there. This is on the other side of the canal from where I'm at right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if you could get permission to camp there. There's actually a big sandy beach that they have manufactured with a gigantic sandcastle. Too far away to get a proper picture of, but it's there. Looks like this marina makes its hay off of selling gas to the boaters that come through here. Nice big free place to dock your boat and get some gas, which is where they presumably, like I said, make their money. So surface is decent around here. Nothing to complain about. Hello there.
Hi.
Go Bills.
Yeah.
When you, I'm wearing my Bills hat right now instead of my my helmet, since I'm off-road. Decided to shift because I do need the shade that the brim of my hat offers more than I need the protective elements of the helmet in this context. So Bills hat it is, and when you run into other people with Bills gear, it is go Bills. That is the proper greeting in this neck of the woods. A lot of mowing along the towpath here today. It is a Thursday, so I think it's a good day to do it without as many people using it. The weather this weekend is supposed to be absolutely fantastic, so I would expect that the towpath will be crowded. Happens to coincide with my 1-0 day, so wasn't intentional, but I'd like to think that it was to a certain degree. I will be rolling into town tomorrow where I'll be spending my 0 day, and I will be there that afternoon, and then I will be back on the towpath Sunday morning sometime. It will take me a bit of time to get down back to the towpath, and it's going to be another deviation from the actual route, which is a little unfortunate, but because it does go through some area, straight up goes through the area that I remembered as a kid, and I considered doubling back a little bit, but got a pretty good long mileage day as it is just to get down to Fairport. So that will not be part of this ride. One more update, as I'm being reminded because it's blowing at me. A little bit of a headwind. You can see it on the canal as well, just to confirm that it's not just the prevailing wind of cycling. So that's a bit of a bummer. I was kind of hoping that prevailing winds would be with me, meaning a tailwind, but it is what it is. That is cycle touring. All right, that is about it for this particular portion of the day. I'm sure I'll be taking another break in another 10 or 20 miles, and we'll check in then. From Medina, New York. Beautiful town here, one of the largest of the remaining towns in my day, but I did not stop for any new provisions. I'm in pretty good shape. I feel like I've got enough water to get me through, certainly to one of the next towns. I've got Holly and I've got Albion to go. So I figure if I roll through this water faster than I think, or if I don't run into a water fountain. I'm just peeking here. Yeah, one of the criticisms of the Erie Canal Trail is that these trail towns do not have water in, I shouldn't, but the broad brush I'm about to use here, many of the towns don't have a water fountain or anything like that right at the trail level, which may just be a logistics issue more than anything else, but it is a downside. You do have to go into the towns to see if you can get water, and many of them, they don't have public water. One of the things that I'll mention is it gets real cold here in the winter, so they would have to shut down a water fountain and winterize it too. So I wonder if that's kind of a broader issue. So I have taken to now believe that bringing my water tank was a good idea, and I'm just going to carry at least 3 liters of water with me at any given time, and I may do more, especially for the ride through Syracuse. So the towns have been fun. I have been taking minimal breaks. I think that I think I've said on recent podcasts, I need to kind of ride for an hour or ride for 20 miles and take an hour break. Yeah, I'm not doing that. I really should do that. I'm feeling okay, a little fatigued, as one would expect on a first day doing mileage like this that I haven't done in a long time. Trying to keep up with calories and with water, especially the latter. Although I just gobble down something, I don't even know anymore. And it's funny, it's like I'm very much in fuel mode with that. I feel unpleasantly full, which sometimes happens when I'm not drinking enough water. So that could be it. I went through an entire Gatorade. I have had quite a bit of water on top of that. Several liters, I feel like. At least a couple liters, I would say, today. One other thing of note, of interest, was that ran into a reasonably large touring group, panniers and everything, and they are going to Albany. They are well ahead of me right now. They are going to be stopping for the day in the next town in Albion. I'm going to be going at least a solid 10, maybe 15 miles beyond that. Don't know where they began, but presumably Buffalo may be at the beginning of the trail. So their mileage makes sense for them, considering they started further west. That's about it. I am enjoying this, but I am looking forward to wrapping up the day in a bit. From near Albion, New York, not quite there yet. Saw a couple of interesting things. A lift bridge in whatever town this is. I do not know this town at all. It was in the up position because it's getting repaired. So, of course, vehicles can't cross the canal at that point, and it was all blocked off. But I thought it was interesting, of course, took a picture of that because seeing lift bridges operate are a fun Western New York thing. The other thing that I thought was worth mentioning, which I think is fascinating and consistent with early research I did on canal lands. So these are Canal Corporation lands. This is I believe, a state agency. I'm pretty sure not a private entity. It may be a private-public partnership at this point. I don't know the exact legal classification for the Canal Corporation. However, I have noticed several times and took a picture of the sign when you re-enter it after going through a town, and there is nothing on there that says no camping. No indication whatsoever. There's a lot of no's, but no camping is not one of them. So I think that really opens things up for one to, in a responsible way, especially in some of these longer stretches here, this particular stretch in particular. Anyways, point being, if you didn't want to go all the way to Albion or all the way to Brockport like I'm doing tonight, man, there's some big fish in the canal. I'm going to try to get a picture of that. I just am seeing these enormous fat fish that I can easily see through the reasonably clear water of the canal. We'll get back to that in a second. Point being, I think you can camp. And there's plenty of space to do it. It makes sense, so long as you're being a good citizen and all that, following all the right rules. I don't see anything that would stop you from doing it. Now, would that be a great example of not illegal stealth camping or wild camping? Maybe. But I have run into things before where they say that camping on Canal Corporation lands is permissible. They usually say you want to get permission of the folks who are running the locks. Well, of course, in this stretch, it's 60 miles without a lock, so ain't nobody to ask. So I throw that out there. Water quality. I can't believe how clear the canal water is. Now, it's still a murky shade of green, like it always has been. But I recall telling the story of scum jumping. The reason why we called it scum jumping was because the water wasn't so nice. But it's very clear at the edges here, and you can see all of the fish. I still don't know what the actual water quality is, but it's certainly a lot clearer than it's ever been when I've been around. So that's something. That's something to maybe celebrate. Maybe, I don't know. Could be the opposite. Could be a bad indicator. In any event, we're under 20 miles until Brockport. I can see the crew ahead of me. They're stopping in Albion, as I've mentioned, so they should be high-fiving themselves and enjoying dinner soon. I've got some more work to do, but I am feeling substantially better than the last time I checked in. I do think water and food is a massively lagging indicator for how you feel. So the old line of eat before you're hungry, drink before you're thirsty is certainly proving to be true for myself today. I think that the 60 is definitely a doable thing, and so long as I take care of myself, I think things will be good. I'm glad tomorrow's a shorter day, and it'll be interesting to see what happens when I do another 60 mile. Today's 62, if memory serves, actually, and I believe the day off the zero hovers right around 60 miles. It might even be a touch less. But point being, I feel like that the way this tour is starting mileage-wise, while I would have liked to have ramped up a little bit more, that just wasn't super reasonable to maximize family time. So I'm glad that I'm doing this. I also am really glad that Brockport is the first town. My uncle lived near Brockport, another town called Clarkson, which is north of there. And so, but we always called it Brockport, and I think it might be a village versus town thing. Anyways, point being, we've got family history there, and I've heard wonderful things about the visitor center there and the amenities in town. Tonight there's a sports ball game, a football game, not the Bills, but one that I wouldn't mind watching a little bit of. I could watch it on my phone. I could watch it in a pub if I'm feeling so inclined. We'll see. But it is interesting. I am in that state as I am so frequently at the end of a day where, boy, I just don't feel very hungry at the moment. But I am going to make sure that I keep up with adding things into my body, even though I don't feel that way. And I think once I get set up and the tent's set up, I think I'll feel a lot better. There are, I believe, showers there Whether I will get there in time for any staffing is another. I was really hoping to get in much earlier today. That just wasn't realistic, given, I'm really ramping up. I'm catching a headwind this whole way too. But allegedly they are open until 8 o'clock during quote-unquote peak boating season, which this kind of is. Whether that's weekends only, who knows? But if it's staffed, I should be in great shape. Allegedly there's access, like I said, to showers, bathrooms, and other things. I would really like to interface with somebody before setting up a tent, but I've heard wonderful welcoming things about the town of Brockport, or the village of Brockport, which is when you fast forward to later in the episode when I'm being arrested by police for illegal camping, because that's just how things go sometimes, right? Anyways, all right, off we go. More to come. From Albion, New York. We're about 15 miles, maybe a touch less than that, away. I just took a picture of a trail marker sign here, basically showing where I'm at, confirming that the western terminus, it looks like, is in downtown Buffalo. I joined the trail somewhere around Tonawanda, a little bit, I would say, to the east of there, but well before Lockport. So if you're looking at the map in the show notes, I would welcome that you do that. So Albion is in the rear view. Saw the crew go off into town there, presumably to wherever they're staying overnight. We've got Holly is the next main town, Holley, Holly, and then Brockport. I had mentioned in the last segment, town versus village. We have a weird, well, I don't know if it's weird. I think it's weird. So in New York State, towns are the larger subunits. They tend to be of a certain size. They take up a chunk of a county. Okay, so within those towns, there are often villages, which are smaller. They tend to be, where the business districts are or whatever for them. They tend to be smaller. So village is a subset of a town. Sometimes villages and towns have the same name. Pittsford, I believe, Penfield, I believe, both the villages and the towns have the same name. Where I grew up and where I was talking about my uncle, that's where you get the weirdness, because you could be, my uncle lived in the town of Clarkson, but not within the village of Brockport, the village of Brockport being within Clarkson. However, for reasons that are unclear to me, we often we don't say that we are from whatever town we live in. So even if we are from outside of the village, we will say we are from the name of the village rather than the town. I don't know why that is the case, but that is the parlance, at least where I grew up. So my uncle, while his home was in Clarkson, the town of Clarkson, and not within the village of Brockport, we always said he was from Brockport. I always say that I grew up in Fairport. Technically, no. We never had a house inside the village of Fairport. We had homes in the town of Perrington, which is so much lame, or maybe that's it. Maybe the town names are just lame. But I think Clarkson is kind of a cool town name, don't you? I don't know. It is the parlance of this area. So if you asked anybody, or if I asked somebody where they're from and they said, "Oh, I live in Perrington," I'd be super. That'd be sus. That'd be super sus, or they'd be brand new. That's all I'm saying. Do you see how I said sus, like of someone who is like maybe 20 years younger than me? I work with younger people. All right, that is all. Good morning. I know. Good morning. Did I skip something here? Yes, I made it to Brockport. The campsite is fantastic. The town is fantastic. The food was fantastic. The beer was fantastic. So much so that I did not get a chance to record anything to close out the day. But oh boy, do I have things to talk about for the beginning of day 2. See you next week.
Statistics. Empire State Trails begun. 1. Number of towns cycled through with port in the name. 5. Bagels eaten. 2. Height of descent from Lockport to the trail below, 70 feet. Flats, 0. Number of episodes beginning with 200 left in the Pedalshift project, 0.
And as always, we like to close out the show with a special shout out to the Pedalshift Society. Because of support from listeners like you, Pedalshift is a weekly bicycle touring podcast with a global community, expanding into live shows and covering new tours. If you like what you hear, you can support the show for $5, $2, or even $1 a month. And there's one-shot and annual options if you're not into the small monthly thing. Check it all out at pedalshift.net/society. On to the society. Kimberly Wilson, Caleb Jenkinson, Cameron Lean, Andrew McGregor, Michael Hart, Keith Nagel, Brock Dittus, Thomas Skadow, Marco Lowe, Terrence Manson, Harry Telgadis, Chris Barron, Mark Van Ram, Brad Hipwell, Mr. T, Nathan Poulton, Stephen Dickerson, Vince LaGreco, Cody Florchinger, Tom Beninati, Greg Braithwaite, Sandy Pizzio, Jeff Muster, Seth Pollock, Joseph Quinn, Drew Porter, Byron Patterson, Joachim Robber, Ray Jackson, Jeff Fry, Kenny Mikey, Lisa Hart, John Denkler, Steve Henkel, Miguel Quinones, Alejandro Aviles Reyes, Keith Spangler, Greg Towner, Jody Zeranin, Lucas Barwick, Michael Baker, Brian Bechtal, Reinhard Bigel, Greg Middlemiss, Connie Moore, William Gothman, Brian Benton, Joan Churchill, Mike Bender, Rick Weinberg, Billy Crafton, Gary Matushak, Greg Latoile Lopez, James Sloan, Jonathan Dillard, John Funk, Ronald Paroli, Dave Roll, Brian Hafner, Misha LeBlanc, Ari Messenger, David Kropke, Todd Grossbeck, Wally Estrella, Sue Reinert, John Lico, Stephen Granada, Philip Mueller, Robert Lackey, Dominic Carroll, Jackie McCullough, John Hickman, Carl Presseau, David Neves, Patty Louise, Terry Fitzgerald, Peter Steinmetz, Timothy Fitzpatrick, Michael Azuski, Hank O'Donnell, David Zanoni, David Weil, Matthew Sponseller, Chad Reno, Spartan Dale, Carolyn Ferguson, Peggy Littlefield, Lauren Allensmith, Eric Burns, Thomas Pearl, Darren McKibben, Richard Stewart, Dave Fletcher, Jack Smith, Luke Parkinson, Ryan Patterson,
Sarus Faravar, and new to the society, John Gardner and Sam Scruggs. And thanks also to all past and anonymous folks for helping make this show happen.
Thank you for joining. You can find Pedalshift at pedalshift.net for more great bicycle touring content. You can hear the Pedalshift project through Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his self-titled album. The track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, Mono Mono, wherever cool music is available.